You're listening to Leadership Podcast, a series of short, insightful discussions with experts in the field of volunteer leadership. Brought to you by the AREA Center for Leadership Development. Your interviewer is Elaine LaChapelle.
Hello and welcome. I'm delighted to be here at the AREA Leadership Conference in Toronto, and we've managed to nab Scott Kress for a few minutes to talk with us today. Now, Scott is a mountaineer, he's a keynote speaker, and he's president of Summit Training and Frontier Team Building. And we're just delighted to have him here today. We're going to be talking about something that Scott calls learning in thin air. Have I got that right?
You got it right, learning in thin air.
Welcome, Scott.
Okay, thanks, pleasure to be here.
Great. So I guess the first obvious question I need to ask you is, what is learning in thin air?
Well, learning in thin air is, it's a title that I came up with. It started out with as my keynote presentation. And it was really my thought process of, I've been climbing for 25 years, and so what have I learned while climbing in these thin air regions of our planet? And the great thing about climbing is that it gives you a lot of insight into teams and into leadership. You can imagine you're at high altitude, it's minus 40 degrees out and a storm is barreling in on you, and you make a decision. You know instantly if that was the right decision or the wrong decision. You know if your team is working well together. You know if leadership is effective. And so this has given me a lot of insight into not just how we perform on the mountains, but how we perform in life, in our professional lives and in our personal lives. And I've just called it learning in thin air, because that's where I've gained a lot of my insights, is in thin air.
So based on your experience then, what's the biggest differentiator between success and failure?
I think it all starts with vision. You have to know what success is. You have to have a definition of what success is. If you can't define it, you can't measure it. And if you can't measure it, you don't know whether you're doing it or not. And so many people just set out on a path, but they don't really know what success is. And therefore, you don't know which way to turn when you hit certain junction points in your journey. If you've got a clear vision, then you know where to go, what to do, who to do it with, what courses to take, what learning to take, and it takes you to a very direct destination. And many people don't have that clear destination. They're just going about doing things and hoping that somehow it gets to a good place, but they don't really know what that place is.
Is that part of what you mean by the deliberate success model, what you call that?
Very much so it is. In our training programs, we use a lot of different models and tools, and the one that kind of underpins everything is what we call the deliberate success model. And this can apply to leaders, it can apply to teams, it can apply to organizations. But essentially, if you want to be successful, you have to start off with a vision, as I was saying. You have to know what success is, but that's not enough. You then have to think about what actions will bring that vision to life. You have to have a very deliberate plan, all the different steps you're going to take to bring this vision to life. And then you need to spend some time reflecting. Every now and then you need to stop, be introspective. You need to look upon yourself and say, am I being who I said I was going to be? Am I doing what I said I was going to do? That way you can course correct if you happen to get off track a little bit. You can uncover any challenges along the way, and you've got a much greater chance of getting to success. So it's a very simple model, 3 steps: vision, action, and reflection. There's certainly a lot more that takes place within that, but that gives you the framework to move towards your goals.
And that's something you used on the mountain as you were
climbing?
Very,
very much. We used it on the mountain. We really talked about creating our vision. And it wasn't a vision of success in climbing the mountain itself, getting to the summit, but it was our vision of who we want to be as people, as a team. It was the soft skills side of things. If you don't have your people side put together, then you're never going to achieve your goal that you're seeking to achieve, because you'll stumble at some point along the way. So we had that vision. We talked about clear steps that would bring that vision to life, and we set aside reflection moments where we would analyze ourselves and make any course corrections if we needed to as we were climbing. So it really gave us a very deliberate path in order to, you've got all the technical stuff, the hard skills, the climbing, the ropes, all the different things. In business, you've got the accounting, the finance, the marketing, all those things. Those are technical things. You have to have those. But if you don't have the soft side of things, the people side of it, then all those skills are of no use.
So if you understand you do some coaching, so what's the starting point? If you're going to coach someone on achieving high performance, what's the starting point? Where do you begin?
Well, I've said it several times already, and it's very simple process. You want to start with the end in mind. You know, Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. So the end is the vision. What is it you want to achieve? It's a simple gap analysis. You know, you want to look at what your end goal is, your vision, what your current reality is, and what's the gap that's in between there, and what are you going to use to bridge that gap to now get to where you want to go. Maybe you'll be pulling into a SWOT analysis in there, looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, looking at different skills and tools that you need to gain to get to where you want to go. But the starting point of any coaching session is knowing what is it you want to achieve. Through this, identifying your current reality, then how are you going to bridge that gap?
Well, thank you so much, Scott. I'm so glad you were able to join us for a few minutes today at any rate. I've been speaking with Scott Kress, and Scott is the author of a book, Learning in Thin Air. And if you want some more information on the book or what we've talked about today, you can go to summittraining.com.
You've been listening to Leadership Podcast. To subscribe to this podcast, go to aria.com/leadership.